Yeah, I think we're all here.
Nice.
It, it's always remarkable. It always works. Thanks so much, Nick, John, Jenna. Let's start, John, with your group and a couple minute report out on what were some of the key themes or ideas that rang in that conversation.
Absolutely. So we were talking about sort of business support and business recovery in our group. And I would say a first theme that really ran through the conversation was that it's hard to come up with a universal characterization of what the challenges are for businesses because it's really distinct for each business. Each business has a unique set of challenges and a unique pathway in terms of how they think about how to survive the current circumstances and how to thrive down the road. And so as a result of that, or maybe as a way to tackle that, the one-on-one sort of engagement with businesses. Stephanie shared that in Brattleboro, Fred shared that in Addison County, that one-on-one engagement with business owners and business practitioners is just so important to really get a feel for what the needs are and to provide sort of that hand holding and support and sort of that custom level of service that's so important. There's also a challenge of sort of fatigue. There's so much coming at folks in terms of webinars and other information opportunities. And the truth is, I mean, we looked around the business conversation and there was maybe a couple of nonprofit business folks. There weren't, oh, and then we had Matt from Virgins who owns a cafe, but the truth is it was mostly service providers, not businesses. And that's sort of an indication of like business owners have limited capacity to have some of these conversations. And it's really important to reach them directly and to think creatively about what are some new ways, given our constraints, to really connect with businesses. There are some exciting things going on in Addison County in terms of response. You know, there's a group. You know, it was interesting as a theme. I heard 3 or 4 people mention the work that they're doing with Middlebury College and Middlebury College interns. And so just a reflection back to you all, you are doing a good job and good for the college of really integrating students into this work. But some of that work is around building an online platform to help people to connect to local businesses and buy things locally and buy food locally. And so that's still in development, but it's pretty exciting to think about what shape that's going to take as things move forward. So that's just like a few quick thoughts. There was a lot more depth, obviously, and I'm glad there was a note taker to capture it all. So thanks, Paul.
And we have it recorded, so anyone who wants to watch the entire 6 hours of conversation has got the opportunity. Thanks so much, John. We had a discussion on telecommunications. Nick, you want to describe how that went?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Paul. So we had a great conversation. I think we had sort of a smaller group, fairly intimate, but it really gave us a chance to dive deeply. And we're lucky to have some deep expertise on the call. So some takeaways. I mean, telecommunications is an interesting topic. I think there's a somewhat of a shared knowledge of what the challenge is and then what the dream would be. We all want high-speed, affordable broadband that doesn't leave anyone behind and is accessible across socioeconomic barriers and divisions and geographies. But it was pretty interesting to see within that the complexity that emerges. I mean, just thinking about the current landscape of telecommunications and internet providers, there's so many different moving pieces. There's some really entrenched traditional service providers. There are some nascent communication unions districts. You'll hear CUDs a lot. We had Jeremy Hansen from one in Central Vermont to help us kind of think through where they're at and what that process looks like. So I think all of us came away with a little bit of a broadband 101 class. But it was, I think, really fruitful. We got into thinking about future strategies in terms of public and private partnerships. It's not always a matter of one solution to cover the whole county. And how can you partner with existing providers? how can local groups, local community organizers, or folks within a town support their CUDs or join a CUD? Partnership with folks like local libraries, which are generally hotspots. And I think that was another big theme in the context of COVID-19, this tension between, especially given that some of the federal money that's now available to help support infrastructure in this arena has a due date on it of the end of the year. There's this tension on meeting folks' basic needs now effectively and in a way that's immediate and addresses telehealth, remote learning, et cetera, but also setting us up for the long term. So there's a lot in there, but it was a really fantastic conversation, and happy to be a part of it.
Thanks a million, Nick. Now we'll hear from Jenna on family and individual needs and how that conversation went.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. We had a great conversation. So around challenges, I think, we face a number of challenges right now around folks getting their essential needs met. In particular, certainly some challenges around mental health needs in the county, and folks, more than ever, needing to reach out, but kind of limited services available. A really big theme around challenges, I think, was lack of predictability. Just as things change, you're having to shift constantly, and that's costly, and that takes, you need additional support, and that's a significant challenge right now. Social isolation is something that maybe even more so than meeting those basic needs, something that came up is, both, or people who are elderly, people who live alone, single moms, migrant farm workers in the county, facing more isolation than even before, and certainly some challenges shared in that community, that the way that was described is they're here, but they're not here. And that was a really poignant way of describing what they're experiencing in that community. The list that I have of strategies working today in Addison County is so long. This could have been a really dismal conversation, and instead it was incredibly uplifting about the amount of collaboration, the folks that have come together in this county. Many times around this topic, I hear that the challenges around collaboration and sharing services, but there's really strong networks in Addison County have formed around this work, even more so today than before. And that's something that has become really strong through this pandemic, but also some more kind of hands-on mutual aid groups that emerged from the very beginning. Just one concrete example of the makery at the Career Center making masks for childcare providers for infants and toddlers. So just some really great work going on there around collaboration, and the term stepping up came up a lot. People are stepping up to fill these roles. And then when it came to vision and ideas, just, really, I think the theme here is really around how do we invest today and think of strategies today that we can continue in the future and become even stronger in the future. And one of those is certainly around investing in universal childcare, one around the universal meals concept that we've actually been able to put into practice during this pandemic. And wouldn't it be fascinating if we could do that in the future? And then some ideas around investing today in housing to continue that work, but also continuing the collaboration at the leadership level that has come together and moving that forward into the future. And finally, just some thoughts and discussion around how to be more inclusive with the migrant farm workers that are living in the county today, both engaging them in the community, but also they want to engage and support the community as well. And some thoughts around translation services and equity in stimulus payments, that kind of thing, to support that community.
Thanks so much, Jenna. Really appreciate it. Richard Amore has agreed to speak for the discussion on building community unity. Richard?
Absolutely. Thanks, Paul. We had a robust, intimate conversation about community and unity. And, community can mean a lot of different things to different people. And we do have a lot of challenges to unity in Vermont and, as folks said, and elsewhere in the country. and really looking at how we could maybe lift the veil of Vermont exceptionalism and really conversations about Vermonters and our identity and how we could be more inclusive of how we identify ourselves as Vermonters. And how systemic racism is present in Vermont and really a big challenge to community unity. You know, we heard a lot of the same things about what's some of the challenges, the anxieties, the uncertainties, and the worries right now of COVID are even making us more disconnected, social isolation, lots of suffering and pain in our communities. You know, other things, you know, that was even happening in Addison County, specifically Middlebury, the transportation project was disrupting kind of the unity in the downtown. But lots of good things have been coming out of this. You know, the conversation looked at the role how K-12 education and schools play in community unity, both, you know, with the challenges of school consolidations and school closures and virtual learning and union discussions. One of the kind of bright spots, you know, how the college and town have leaned on another for support, information sharing, and it's been really a wonderful thing that's come during COVID. And then the transportation project has, you know, been a big disruptor, but the community has, you know, had a clever response, formed a group called Neighbors Together to really help support downtown and local businesses, and promote the downtown and with events and marketing. And even circulating the Middlebury bucks, a local currency to keep dollars local. Another group called Ideal Middlebury's approached the select board about advancing racial equity and systemic racism discussions in Middlebury, you know, about municipal practices, policing, and even a larger, broader community conversation. Some really, you know, response into COVID. Addison County Mutual Aid was launched by a group of citizen volunteers to help residents with food and meal delivery, and really being impressed with the level of artists and musicians rallying to support the community with virtual offerings, town hall theater, some really bright spots happening, but it all came back down to, you know, some of the larger conversations that other groups had about, you know, broadband as a fundamental to equity, and lacking that access is really a big part of the equity and community unity conversation, getting youth involved in the conversation, the challenges of affordable housing, both in Middlebury and the larger county. And so, you know, there are definitely, you know, we're kind of at a turning point where we need to, you know, think about who we are as Vermonters, what we want in our communities, and kind of look at how ways we can be more inclusive in our communities and the way we identify ourselves as Vermonters. So it was a really robust and deep, meaningful conversation, and I really valued everybody's contributions.
Well done, Richard. That was quite a threading together of a lot of different aspects of the conversation. So I appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who's come as a visiting team member and our facilitators and scribes. These are folks who have put in a long day. We all know how furiously fast everyone's working. And then they add on these evening sessions because they're absolutely dedicated to recovery. They're absolutely dedicated to the communities that we all serve as a team. And we deeply appreciate the honor of your company in this call tonight. I want to turn it briefly to Adam Luigi from the Regional Planning Commission, who can speak for the steering committee that helped us organize this process. Go ahead, Adam.
So thank you, Paul. I think as kind of my final words for the evening, I'd just like to thank you and your team for coming here to Addison County tonight and helping bring all of us together to think about how we solve our own problems and how we take initiatives amongst ourselves, and giving us really good expertise and ideas. And I look forward to hearing back from you and your team, and taking the ideas we create tonight and moving forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. And, you know, folks on the call should be very gratified that you have such an excellent regional planning and regional development corporation here in Addison County. You folks know how to do a lot of things really well. The steering committee as a whole, we'd like to thank, but we'd also want to thank each one of you. You wouldn't be on the call. You wouldn't be here except that you're on the line for your community. You're on the line for your county. You're standing up as participants. And that's one definition of leadership. So we deeply appreciate it. It's the work of local leaders, regional leaders, people who step up that built Vermont and that Vermont still is held up by. So we deeply appreciate it. We also are looking at a lot of screens these days, you know, these regional county calls, local calls, calls with service providers, all kinds of calls. And you see and you hear from these conversations, fatigue, behind the scenes, the tension and desperation of wanting to do better around things like the racial strife in our country, the underlying anxieties around climate change, the fires, the hurricane, the electoral division that we face in this country. When will that election be over? And the anxiety that that's producing. We also hear from people in these calls that we're planning desperately with great urgency for a future that we don't really know. And that produces anxiety and fatigue. We just are struggling to hold it together. We get it. We're with you. We know that we're in a time where people are on the line and where we have to stand together with courage, with common faith, with confidence. We've seen challenges like this before as a people. Our parents and grandparents went through World War II. We as a society have faced great struggle. We're not going to be done with this one. It's a time where we are stepping up to do our best. But we are going to show our mettle. We are going to come out of this strong. We are making a difference today. And we're Vermont strong. We have something going for us that is going to contribute to our collective victory over this situation. So it's an honor to be part of that struggle and part of the conversation about how to advance it with each of you. Each of you is incredibly important in playing a part, and together we're shifting the ground. So thanks for being part of the conversation with all of us tonight. It's a great honor to be part of it, and onward and upward, we'll get back to work tomorrow. Thanks.
Well, we should quickly say how we're going to follow up with people.
Oh, Jenna,
And I hate to end, we should have ended on that because that was incredibly inspiring.
oh,
But
yeah,
I do want everyone to know that you are going to hear from us. We're going to send out, tomorrow we'll send out a survey if you have additional input or have others that would want to share input to us and to the Governor's Action Team. Please send that along, and then you'll get final notes and recordings from us in the next couple of weeks. And also, this is our 10th call. We've got 4 more to do. We're going to be adding up the best we can with the Governor's Action Team, and you will all be on the first list of people to get that final report and what we've heard around the state. So we'll share that with you as soon as we're able. So thanks, everyone. You'll hear from us soon.
Okay, so now I have to go through my whole thing again.
Yeah, you do another speech.
Thanks, everyone. Love to have the conversation. Enjoy your evening.
Take care,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.